Ash Nakamura was 5'6" on his best day, which made him the smallest human in every room on Proxima B. Not that the research station had many rooms, just the main lab, the mess hall, and the 6 cramped sleeping pods they called coffins. Being short had never bothered him on Earth. Here, surrounded by genetically optimized colonists who averaged 6 foot plus, it felt like a cosmic joke. But none of that mattered compared to what had just happened in the valley. "Say that again," Dr. Eliza Okafor demanded, her voice tight as she applied Medifoam to the gash across Ash's forearm. At 6'3", she towered over him even while seated. "And try not to sound completely insane this time." "I told you what happened." Ash winced as the foam sealed the wound. "One of the Shapers spoke to me. Called me, little brother. In English." "Bullshit," said Reed, the security specialist, leaning against the doorframe with arms crossed. His shoulders nearly touched both sides. "Those things don't talk. They don't even have the right vocal apparatus." "I know what I heard," Ash insisted. The room fell silent except for the constant hum of the atmospheric filters. Outside the reinforced windows, Proxima B's strange perpetual sunset painted the rocky landscape in blood oranges and deep purples. The tidal-locked planet never fully faced its star, leaving their research station in an eternal dusk zone, not quite day, not quite night. Just like Ash felt right now, caught between reality and something else. Dr. Okafor tossed the empty Medifoam canister into the recycler. "Ash, you were in shock. You just watched a Shaper tear apart a gulper cat twice its size. Your brain was struggling to process trauma." "That's not. I've studied the Shapers for 3 years," she continued, her tone softening but still dismissive. "They're apex predators with problem-solving abilities, yes, but they're not sentient. At least not in the way we define it." Reed snorted. "They're scary as hell, but they're animals. Smart animals." The images flashed through Ash's mind again, the massive creature with its rippling, almost liquid-looking exoskeleton, the way it had killed so efficiently. Then how it had approached him, those compound eyes fixing on him with unmistakable recognition. And the voice. The goddamn voice that hadn't come from a mouth but had somehow formed inside his head. Clear as a comm channel, * little brother. You return to us, *. Look, Ash said, standing up suddenly. At his height, the gesture lacked the dramatic effect he'd hoped for. "I know protocol says we report this, but can we just hold off? For a day or two? I want to go back out there." Reed pushed off from the doorframe. "Absolutely not. You almost got yourself killed today. I wasn't in danger. It could have killed me in seconds if it wanted to." "That's not the reassurance you think it is," Reed replied. Dr. Okafor studied Ash's face with clinical detachment. "You realize what corporate would do if they thought the Shapers were sentient, don't you? The entire planet would be quarantined. Our research would be over. Or they'd just exterminate them," Reed added casually. "Can't have ethical complications mucking up the terraforming schedule." Ash felt his stomach twist. He'd only been on Proxima B for 6 months, the rest of the team had been here for years. They'd all signed the same contract with Nexus Exploration, assess the planet's habitability, catalog the indigenous species, and prepare for potential colonization. Nobody had anticipated finding anything like the Shapers. "I know what I heard," Ash repeated, quieter this time. "You know we all experience auditory hallucinations during moments of extreme stress," said Dr. Okafor. "Your brain was trying to make sense of a predator not attacking you when it should have." Ash stared at his bandaged arm. The truth was, he'd been experiencing strange sensations ever since landing on Proxima B, dreams that didn't feel like dreams. Moments of déjà vu in landscapes he'd never seen before. And sometimes, when alone in the field, a peculiar awareness, like being watched by something that understood him better than he understood himself. "I'm not filing an official report," he decided. "Not yet. Dr. Okafor's relief was palpable. Good. That's good. But I am going back out tomorrow. Like hell you are, Reed growled. I've been compiling genetic samples from all the native fauna, Ash said, ignoring Reed. I want to check something in the Shaper DNA sequences I've collected. Dr. Okafor frowned. That's not your assignment. You're here to assess microbial compatibility with Earth agriculture. I have a hunch, Ash said, not meeting her eyes. He couldn't explain the pull he felt, it was irrational, unprofessional. But after that encounter in the valley, he couldn't ignore it. A hunch, Reed repeated flatly. Fine. Dr. Okafor stood, towering over Ash. One day. Take samples, run your tests, satisfy your curiosity. But you stay within half a kilometer of the station, and you take Reed with you. Reed started to protest, but she silenced him with a look. And Ash, she added. If you hear voices again, we're sedating you and putting you on the next transport home. Clear. He nodded, though they both knew the next transport wasn't due for another 4 months. That night, Ash couldn't sleep. His coffin felt more suffocating than usual, the recycled air too thin. He pulled up his research on the wall screen, scrolling through the genetic sequences he'd been secretly compiling. Proxima B's evolutionary path had taken bizarre turns due to the planet's unusual light cycle. The day side was too hot for complex life, the night side too cold. Only the thin terminator zone where they'd established the research station could support the kind of biodiversity they'd found. The Shapers were the apex predators of this narrow habitable band. 12 feet tall when fully extended, with exoskeletons that could reconfigure for different environments. Their name came from their most unnerving ability, physically reshaping themselves to adapt to immediate threats or opportunities. But there was something in their genetic code that had been bothering Ash for weeks. Something familiar. His tablet pinged with an incoming message. It was from Tessa, the team's xenobiologist, who usually kept to herself in the secondary lab. You awake? Need to show you something. Come to lab 2. Don't tell the others, asterisk. Ash hesitated. It was the middle of the night cycle. What could be so urgent? Curiosity won out. He pulled on his station jumpsuit and slipped out of his coffin. The corridor was dimmed to simulate night, the red emergency lights casting long shadows. As he approached Lab 2, he noticed the door was slightly ajar, unusual for Tessa who was fanatical about containment protocols. Tessa, he called softly, pushing the door open. The lab was dark except for a single workstation. As his eyes adjusted, he could make out Tessa's slight form hunched over a microscope. You need to see this, she said without looking up. I've been running parallel genetic studies. Comparing Earth fauna to Proxima specimens. That's way outside our. I know. But look. She moved aside, gesturing to the microscope. Ash leaned in, adjusting the viewer for his height. What he saw made his breath catch. This can't be right, he whispered. I've run the analysis 6 times, Tessa said. Her voice trembled slightly. Those markers shouldn't exist here. It's statistically impossible. On the screen beside the microscope, 2 genetic sequences were displayed side by side. One from a Shaper. One from Ash's personal medical file. Partial matches in key areas. How did you get my medical data? He asked, a chill running down his spine. That's your question. Tessa laughed, a high, nervous sound. Not why your DNA shares markers with an alien apex predator. Ash stared at the sequences, his mind racing. These could be coincidental similarities. Convergent evolution across different. No. Tessa shook her head emphatically. Not like this. There's directionality to these matches. Like. She hesitated. Like someone engineered one from the other. The words hung in the air between them. That's impossible, Ash said finally. Humans evolved on Earth. Shapers evolved here. We're separated by over 4 light-years of space and billions of years of independent evolution. Yet here we are. Tessa gestured to the screen. And now you're telling me one of them spoke to you? Called you brother? Ash felt suddenly exposed. I never told you that. Tessa's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. Dr. Okafor mentioned it. No, she wouldn't have. She wants to keep it quiet. A heavy silence filled the lab. Ash became acutely aware of how isolated they were from the main facility. Who else knows about this? He asked carefully. No one. Just me. Tessa's hand moved slightly toward a drawer beneath her workstation. And now you. Ash took a step back. I should go. It's late, and we both need to. The lab door hissed shut behind him. Locked. I'm sorry, Ash, Tessa said, her voice different now, harder, more clinical. But Nexus needs to understand what's happening here. What you are. What I am. Ash repeated, confusion mixing with growing alarm. I'm a geneticist from Tokyo with a mediocre employment record and a thing for extinct Earth species. What the hell do you think I am? That's what we're going to find out. Tessa withdrew a sedative injector from the drawer. Corporate has questions about your late addition to this mission. Your unusually rapid adaptation to Proxima's environment. The way native fauna responds to your presence. Ash backed away until he hit a sample storage unit. This is insane, Tessa. We're colleagues. I'm a Nexus security asset first, she replied calmly. My orders are to assess potential threats to company interests. I'm not a threat. Then why did the most dangerous predator on this planet call you family? She advanced slowly, injector raised. Corporate thinks the Shapers might have been engineered as biological terraforming tools. Left here by someone, or something, a long time ago. The pieces started falling into place in Ash's mind, his inexplicable comfort on this alien world, the dreams, the strange familiarity of certain genetic sequences he'd been studying. And you think I'm connected to that? He asked, playing for time as he glanced around for anything he could use as a weapon. That's ridiculous. Is it? Your genetic profile was flagged by AI as having unusual markers. Markers we now know partially match Shaper DNA. You were specifically selected for this mission, Ash. Just not by the people you think. She lunged suddenly, injector aimed at his neck. Despite her height advantage, Ash's reflexes were faster than either of them expected. He ducked under her arm and drove his shoulder into her midsection, sending them both crashing into a rack of sample containers. Glass shattered, spilling preserved specimens across the floor. Tessa recovered quickly, grabbing Ash's injured arm. Pain shot through him as she dug her fingers into the fresh wound. He cried out, then instinctively jabbed 2 fingers into her throat. She gagged, loosening her grip just enough for him to break free. The lab's emergency alarm began blaring. The containment breach protocols activating in response to the damaged specimens. Security override. Tessa gasped, still clutching her throat. Authorization Tessa Chen, Nexus Security, Code Alpha 96. The alarm continued wailing. The lab's systems weren't responding to her. A new sound cut through the noise, a low, vibrating hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The lights flickered, then died completely, plunging the lab into darkness except for the pulsing red emergency lights. What did you do? Tessa demanded, fear replacing her clinical detachment. Nothing, Ash whispered, equally confused. Then he felt it, that same presence he'd experienced in the valley. A consciousness brushing against his own. Little brother. We come, asterisk. The reinforced exterior wall of the lab began to ripple, as if the metal itself had become liquid. Tessa screamed, scrambling backward toward the locked door. Ash stood frozen, watching as the wall peeled open like the skin of a fruit. And there, silhouetted against Proxima's eternal sunset, loomed the massive form of a shaper. Tessa's scream cut through the alarms as the shaper flowed into the lab like liquid metal solidifying into nightmare. Its exoskeleton rippled with iridescent patterns, warning colors, Ash realized, like those of venomous Earth species. 2 of its 4 upper limbs pressed against the ceiling, cracking the reinforced panels. The creature had to crouch to fit in the room, and still it loomed over everything. Security! Tessa shrieked into her comm, Lab 2. Code red. The shaper's compound eyes, hundreds of facets reflecting the pulsing emergency lights, focused not on her, but on Ash. It made no move to attack. They would cage you. Study you. Dismantle you to understand what you are. The voice in Ash's head was clearer now, composed of sounds that weren't quite words and concepts that didn't quite translate to language. Yet somehow, he understood. What am I? He whispered. Tessa stared at him in horror. Are you talking to it? Can you communicate with this thing? The lab door exploded inward. Reed charged through the smoking frame, pulse rifle raised. Dr. Okafor followed close behind, her own weapon drawn. They froze at the sight before them, the massive shaper, the destroyed wall, Ash standing calmly while Tessa cowered against a workstation. Nobody move. Reed barked, training his rifle on the shaper. Ash, get behind me. Now. Ash didn't move. The violent one will force our response. This ends in blood unless you choose otherwise, little brother. Wait. Ash raised his hands. Don't shoot. It's not hostile. Reed's finger tensed on the trigger. That thing just broke through a reinforced wall. It's hostile by definition. It came for me, Ash said. Just me. Lower your weapon and no one gets hurt. Dr. Okafor's eyes narrowed. You invited it here. No. I mean, not consciously. Ash struggled to explain something he barely understood himself. It sensed I was in danger. Danger from what? Reed demanded, his aim not wavering. Tessa had recovered enough to stand straighter, her training reasserting itself. He's compromised. Some kind of genetic link to these creatures. Nexus has suspected for months. Dr. Okafor's face hardened. Your Nexus security. Asset code 87 Delta, Tessa confirmed. Embedded to monitor genetic anomalies in the research team. Jesus, Reed muttered. We're all being watched. The shaper moved then, just a slight adjustment of its massive form, but enough to make Reed jerk the rifle higher. Don't. Ash pleaded, stepping between Reed and the creature. At 5'6", he barely blocked any of the target, but the gesture itself was unmistakable. Move, Ash, Reed warned. Just listen to me, Ash said. This doesn't have to end badly. The shapers aren't just animals. They're intelligent. Sentient. And somehow, connected to me. Tell them what you begin to understand, little brother. Tell them of the pattern that repeats across stars. Ash felt knowledge unfurling in his mind like a time-lapse of a flower blooming, connections and concepts that seemed to have always been there, dormant, waiting for this catalyst to activate. Life, he began, surprised at the steadiness in his voice, intelligent life, follows certain patterns. Certain templates. Earth and Proxima B evolved along parallel paths despite being light-years apart. Not by chance, but by design. What the hell are you talking about? Reed growled. The shapers were engineered, yes, Ash continued, the knowledge flowing through him now. But not as terraforming tools. As guardians. Caretakers. They've been here for millions of years, guiding evolution, ensuring the emergence of complexity and eventually, consciousness. Dr. Okafor's scientific curiosity visibly warred with her fear. That's impossible. Evolution doesn't work that way. Not natural evolution, Ash agreed. But what if intelligence itself is something that spreads? Seeds itself across compatible worlds. The Shaper's exoskeleton shifted, plates realigning as it settled into a less threatening posture. One limb extended toward Ash, stopping just short of touching him. Show them. Without fully understanding how, Ash reached out and placed his palm against the creature's appendage. The contact sent electric sensation up his arm, not pain, but information. Dense, complex, overwhelming. Ash's eyes rolled back as his mind expanded to accommodate what was being shared. Images and concepts flooded his consciousness, worlds across the galaxy, life taking root, guided by entities that transcended individual bodies. And through it all, humanity, not an accident of evolution, but a planned emergence. One iteration of a pattern repeated across the cosmos. When he came back to himself, he was on his knees. The others stared at him with expressions ranging from horror to fascination. What just happened? Dr. Okafor asked softly. Ash looked up at her, then at Reed and Tessa. How could he possibly explain? We're not the first, he said finally. Humans, I mean. We're an echo. A variation on a theme that's been played out across thousands of worlds. Intelligence follows patterns, and those patterns were established long ago by something that spread itself across the galaxy. Panspermia, Dr. Okafor whispered. You're describing targeted panspermia. More than that, Ash said. Not just the seeds of basic life, but the seeds of consciousness itself. Templates for intelligence embedded in compatible genetic systems. Reed lowered his rifle slightly, confusion replacing some of his aggression. So what, we're all aliens? No, Ash shook his head. We evolved on Earth, genuinely. But along paths, nudged. Guided towards certain outcomes. The Shapers are one expression of this process. Humans are another. You understand only fragments, little brother. But it is enough for now. Tessa had edged toward a fallen sample case, her hand reaching for something inside. This changes nothing, she said coldly. Nexus protocol for first contact with sentient non-terrestrials is clear, secure, contain, study. This planet is company property. These creatures are company assets. Are you insane? Ash demanded. Did you not hear what I just said? The Shapers aren't just some animals, they're part of something vast. Ancient. They've been guiding evolution on this planet for millions of years. All the more reason to control them, Tessa replied. The applications would be limitless. The Shaper's posture changed subtly, aggression returning to its stance. She threatens the pattern. She cannot leave with this knowledge. Tessa, think about what you're doing, Dr. Okafor said cautiously. Whatever Nexus is paying you, it's not worth this. Reed surprised everyone by lowering his rifle completely. I didn't sign up to be the muscle for corporate bioweapons research. This is beyond our pay grade. Cowards, Tessa spat. Her hand emerged from the case holding not a weapon, but a small metallic sphere, a data core. I've collected enough samples. Enough proof. Nexus doesn't need you, any of you, alive to benefit from this discovery. She pressed her thumb against the core's surface, and it glowed blue. Emergency extraction protocol activated. 60-second countdown to site sterilization. You're going to kill us all. Dr. Okafor gasped. Not me, Tessa said, a cold smile forming. My consciousness will be backed up to the satellite buffer. Standard procedure for high-value assets in terminal situations. Ash felt the Shaper's fury and fear like a physical force. The small one would burn this place. Release chemicals that poison the air, the soil, the water. Many cycles of death would follow. How do we stop it? Ash asked aloud. You can't, Tessa replied, mistaking his question as directed at her. Once activated, the protocol completes even if I die. That's the point. The Shaper's limb shot out, faster than human reflexes could track. But instead of striking Tessa, it wrapped around Ash, pulling him close to its massive form. There is a way, little brother. But it requires what you call sacrifice. Understanding bloomed in Ash's mind, horrible, perfect understanding. The Shapers were guardians not just of evolution, but of the biosphere itself. They could absorb and neutralize toxins, transform harmful compounds into harmless ones. It was how they'd maintained Proxima B's delicate ecological balance for millions of years. But the sterilization protocol would release compounds too toxic even for them to process directly. Unless they had help. Human help. A bridge between species. How long? Ash asked the creature, ignoring the other's confusion. Years of your life. Decades, perhaps. You would be changed. Neither fully human nor fully Shaper. But the pattern would continue. And if I refuse? Then what grows here dies. The pattern broken. The work of ages lost. Reed raised his rifle again, but pointed it at Tessa this time. Deactivate it. Now. Can't, she said simply. 40 seconds remaining. Dr. Okafor grabbed a sedative injector from a nearby tray. We need to evacuate. The emergency shuttle. Won't launch in time, Tessa finished for her. This facility will be ash in less than a minute. And the fallout will sterilize everything within 50 kilometers. Decide, little brother. Ash looked at his trembling hands, human hands attached to a human body. He'd come to Proxima B to study microbial life, to help determine if humans could someday live here. The irony wasn't lost on him. Will I remember who I am? He asked the Shaper. Parts. Fragments. Enough. Do it, he said. The Shaper's exoskeleton flowed like quicksilver, enveloping Ash before anyone could react. He heard Reed shouting, felt Dr. Okafor trying to pull him free. But the process had already begun, the merging of human genetic material with the Shaper's adaptive biology. Pain beyond anything he'd imagined tore through him as his bones reformed, his organs shifted, his consciousness expanded. Through the haze of agony, he was dimly aware of the data core in Tessa's hand beginning to vibrate, its casing cracking as the deadly compounds prepared to release. With his last moment of purely human thought, Ash reached out with newly formed limbs and pulled the core into what had been his chest. The Shaper biology surrounding him sealed over it, containing the explosion that would have destroyed everything. The world went white, then black. Dr. Eliza Okafor stood at the edge of the valley, watching the strange new growth that had begun to spread from the ruins of Lab 2. 3 months had passed since what the official Nexus report called a containment accident resulting in total staff casualty. Nexus had written off the planet after preliminary scans showed widespread chemical contamination, exactly as Tessa's extraction protocol had been designed to do. What the orbital sensors couldn't detect was that the contamination was being actively processed, transformed, rendered harmless by the hybrid organism that had once been Ash Nakamura. Reed stepped up beside her, his pulse rifle slung casually over one shoulder. They were the only survivors, having been far enough from the initial blast to escape serious injury. With communications down and the next supply ship months away, they'd adapted to a new existence on the edge of the research station's ruins. They're beautiful, in a weird way, Reed commented, gesturing toward the distant shapes moving through the tall grass, Shapers, more than she'd ever seen gathered in one place. They seemed to be tending to the new growth, nurturing it. Yes, she agreed. They are. At the center of the Shaper's activity was a form unlike the others, smaller, with features that were neither fully human nor fully Shaper. Sometimes, when the light hit it just right, she could almost see Ash's face in its compound eyes. Do you think he's still in there somewhere? Reed asked quietly. Still, him. Dr. Okafor considered the question carefully. She'd spent weeks analyzing the samples she'd managed to collect from the hybrid organism, enough to understand what had happened, but not enough to replicate it. Which was for the best. I think, she said finally, he's become something more than either human or shaper. A bridge between species. Between evolutionary paths. Nexus would kill to get their hands on him, Reed muttered. Which is why they never will. Her tone left no room for argument. As far as Earth knows, everyone died in that explosion. This place is quarantined for at least a decade. By then. She let the thought hang unfinished. By then, who knew what might evolve here? In the valley, the hybrid creature that had once been Ash raised its head and seemed to look directly at them. A familiar sensation brushed against Dr. Okafor's mind, not words exactly, but meaning, clear as day. The pattern continues. Life finds a way. Always. Dr. Okafor smiled and raised her hand in a small wave. The creature mirrored the gesture with one of its smaller limbs, a human gesture performed by something no longer human. Reed shook his head in amazement. Hard to believe he was the smallest one in the room just a few months ago. Size, Dr. Okafor said, watching the hybrid direct the shapers in their work of renewal, was never the relevant evolutionary advantage.